Joining us now, Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of New York. She is a member of the House Transportation Committee and Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for joining me today. My first question is in regard to something that Jen Psaki said regarding Build Back Better, saying executive action isn't off the table. What is your reaction?
That's absolutely shameful that progressives, that Jen Psaki, that anyone would be saying that the president should be taking unilateral action here. We are a representative democracy. That is not how we do things here in the United States. It may be how you do things in my mother's homeland of Cuba, but not here in America. And we have representatives for a reason. And all the Republicans in the House voted against the Build Back Better disaster because we know it's about more government control, bureaucracy, taxes, mandates, doubling the IRS, amnesty, things that the American people do not want. And our constituents sent us to Washington to have that voice. And now they're looking to take it away by just overstepping the Congress. That is completely wrong. But what I will say is that I believe Joe Manchin did the right thing here. We need more representatives like him in the Senate that are willing to stand up against their own party and do what is right for the people in this country to save our democracy, save this country from socialism, which is exactly what they're trying to implement on the other side.
Congresswoman, there are parts of this package that have been popular with regards even to Senator Manchin. Do you think that there are pieces in the new year that can be brought forward in chunks that can actually pass?
Look, it's quite possible. At the end of the day, Republicans don't control the agenda. We have to see what Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats bring up. And then if it's something that Republicans can agree to, then that's possible. I don't think that there's much in this Build Back disaster that Republicans do support. At the end of the day, there are some real egregious pieces here. You know, moving forward with entitlement programs at a time when we have record inflation, implementing more welfare without work requirements at a time where we're lacking workers, our production is suffering, we're seeing issues in the supply chain as a result. That is only going to exacerbate the problems if they implement many pieces of this agenda. So I think we need to stand strong against it. And I'll say it's not just this that Republicans have been able to defeat this year. Remember, they tried to push packing the court. They wanted to push radical election law changes. They wanted to use taxpayer money to fund campaigns. They wanted to implement anti-police legislation. We stood strong against it, and those were their top priorities, and we defeated them.
You bring up the supply chain because we're all feeling the effects of it, but not according to the White House. Take a look at what White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain was tweeting this about the supply chain crisis. Merry Christmas to all, and to this overhyped narrative, a good night. When asked if it showed the White House was out of touch with Americans, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff Karl Rove had this to say. Watch.
How disconnected is the White House to the American people?
Well, I think awfully disconnected. Look, remember, these are the people who said COVID-19 was going to be in the rearview mirror by the 4th of July and who called the inflation that we're experiencing transitory and dismissing it as not needing any attention or action.
Congresswoman, your response.
Yeah, I mean, it is completely out of touch. People are paying record amounts for, gas, for food. We're seeing everything across the board going up. Certainly, shelves are less stocked than they were last year, even when it comes to medications and things that we need to fight the pandemic. They're talking about the lack of having the tests available. But what about monoclonal antibodies? What about medications? All of that is being impacted by the supply chain issue. And by the way, they're telling me, the industry leaders, when we had a roundtable a couple weeks ago, that it will get worse if the president's vaccine mandates go into effect because they will lose more workers and there will be less production, and we'll see a bigger issue with the supply chain if that goes forward.
You know, Congressman, you're talking about something that we're all feeling regardless of what politicians are saying. But there are many members of the media who are still so focused on Senator Joe Manchin. You think that was the only thing going on. Take a listen right now to MSNBC host Joy Reid as she lashes out at Joe Manchin over his opposition to the Build Back Better bill.
Maserati Manchin, a multimillionaire coal baron, would fit right in on lifestyles of the rich and famous. Here is a coal baron whose family's in the coal biz, whose daughter was in the expensive EpiPen biz, who's rich and has a yacht and a Maserati, basically saying the poors are lazy.
Basically, Senator Manchin is the Grinch incarnate. But there are other things that we're thinking about right now, isn't there?
Well, I got to tell you, this is exactly why they are such hypocrites. They claim to be the party of inclusivity, the big tent, and yet if somebody has any type of different opinion than they do, then automatically they need to be alienated. It's wrong what they're doing. Joe Manchin has a right to represent his constituent, just like I have the right to represent my constituents. I think he knows best what's for the people of West Virginia, not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or not Joy Reid or not anyone else. And that's why he was elected to do the job. So, yeah, we have a lot of problems right now. We do need to focus on those. Let's focus on continuing to stop some of the bad policies as we have this year. I look forward to 2022. I think it's going to be a good year, but more so, I look forward to 2023 when we finally take back the House so we can have a real balance in Washington and not just this left-wing extremism that you're seeing being peddled by people like the Socialist Squad.
Oh, and as you know, a lot of folks right now are really worried about crime. They're seeing all of these videos of break-ins in stores, and there's a new report that shows how several major crime categories have spiked this year in Los Angeles, including violent crime. This as a dozen Democratic-led cities have set homicide records earlier this month. And all this as the surge in violent crime hits close to home for two Democratic lawmakers who supported police reforms. In Illinois, a state senator and her husband, were carjacked at gunpoint just outside of Chicago. Fortunately, they were unharmed. Then, less than a day later, Pennsylvania Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon was also carjacked at gunpoint, this time in Philadelphia. While she, too, was unharmed, the thieves did get away with many of her personal belongings. It was less than a month ago that Philly's DA insisted there was no crime crisis.
There is not a big spike in crime. That is not true. There is also not a big spike in violent crime. Neither one of these things is true. Basically, we don't have a crisis of lawlessness. We don't have a crisis of crime. We don't have a crisis of violence.
Congresswoman, this isn't something that lawmakers are just seeing happen on the news and hearing about it in reports in their office. It is up front and center and very personal now.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear about those crimes. But what I will say is that when I put a resolution on the floor to condemn attempts to defund, dismantle, and abolish the police, both those lawmakers voted against this resolution, which I found to be astounding. I hope they reconsider their position. Again, Republicans were successful in pushing back against attempts to take away qualified immunity from our police officers and take away resources from our police officers, something that the Democrats had pushed on the floor this year. I hope that they will reconsider it, being that they are now victims themselves. We need to do more to protect our cities across America, and it starts with giving power to our police to be able to do their jobs. Let's stop taking away their tools. Let's give them more resources. In New York, we need to refund the police, and we also need to restore the plainclothes unit. We need to take away that, we need to put back that immunity protection, because we're seeing less people wanting to join the police force, and we're seeing record retirement. So I hope that the new mayor takes action to fix these issues so we can once again restore public safety in New York. And the politicians in Albany, they need to fix that disastrous bail law once and for all.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point about the police and staffing shortages. I know here in the state of Colorado, where I'm located, the city of Aurora has just approved $8,000 apiece retention bonuses for their police officers there, just to get them to stay for the rest of the year. So very good point there. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.